Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. So Liverpool lost to Manchester City today by 5-0 in what I think we can all agree was a very, very bad day at the office. And I think going straight on to the first really big talking point of the game, the red card, for me, it's just not a red card. I mean, there's so many issues with it that mean that for me it's definitely a foul, it's definitely a free kick, and I think you could say that it's a yellow card because, you know, if you ever raise your foot like that in a match of football, you are taking a risk and you are putting your opponents at risk effectively, and so you can argue that maybe it's a yellow card. And interestingly, Mark Clattenburg, professional referee, arguably a better referee than John Moss, said that he thinks because Mane only ever tried to play the ball, he only ever had eyes for the ball, that it should only be a yellow card and not a red. And that's the crux of it for me, really, because it's not violent behaviour by Sadio Mane. Like I said, while it is a risk to raise your foot, he only ever does it with the intention of winning the ball. He never tries to hurt Ederson. He never tries any sort of malice. There's no intention to hurt involved with the way he plays the ball. And in that situation, that's what you'd expect Sadio Mane to do. You know, he's in space. He's got the goalkeeper in a difficult position as well, because Ederson has rather questionably made the decision to run out of his goal and try and get to the ball, even though it's outside the box. And so Mane's in a position where he needs to take advantage of that situation. And if he doesn't try and play the ball, then you'd question his attitude and you'd question why he didn't do that. And you'd say that that's poor decision making on Sadio Mane's part. And I think the way Ederson approaches the ball, he's putting himself at risk. And that's not Sadio Mane's fault, you know. It's not Sadio Mane's fault that Ederson comes out and thinks he can reach that ball, even though it's fairly clear right from the off that he's making a rash decision and that he is putting himself in danger. He also ducks his head, makes himself very small, which is interesting as a goalkeeper, because in those kind of situations, the one thing you're told is to make yourself big. So the fact that he hunches over, he sticks his head out like that when really he should be going for it with his chest. Obviously, he's outside the goal. He can't go with it with his hands, which is what he probably would have done if he was in the box. But he goes for it in almost inexplicably with his head. He puts himself at risk. He moves his head towards Sadio Mane's boot when Sadio Mane has only ever got eyes for the ball. Obviously, Ederson has as well, but he knowingly puts himself at risk. Sadio Mane doesn't do anything violent in my eyes, and yet Johnathan Moss still gives him the red card. Side note, a lot of you will know, Johnathan Moss shook all the Man City players' hands after that game, and yet he ignored Jurgen Klopps. So I think, to be honest, that says all you need to know about what John Moss thinks of his own performance, because if he genuinely thought, looking back at that was a red card, he would have happily shook the manager's hand, confident in the fact that he had had a good game and he treated both sides fairly. I think John Moss knows that he's made a mistake there. He knows that he's basically ruined the tie. And so that's why he doesn't want to shake Jurgen Klopp's hand. And I think he did apparently look fairly doubtful after that decision and looked like maybe he regretted doing it. But that's just the main issue for me, is it's not violent from Sadio Mane. It's a big risk from Ederson. He puts himself in that situation. Sadio Mane is simply doing what you'd expect him to do. And the thing is, you issue a red card in football basically for one of two reasons. You either do it because a player has done something terrible and you think that is the appropriate punishment. You know, you need to punish a player if they've done something awful on the football pitch and they haven't abided by the rules. And so you give them a red card because you think that's the appropriate level of punishment for it. Or you're sending someone off the pitch because you think they're behaving in a violent way that is putting other players at risk and is putting other players in danger on the football pitch. Sadio Mane was doing neither of those things. He was simply playing how you'd expect him to play, doing what you'd expect him to do. You know, Ederson, he comes out, you'd expect Sadio Mane to put his feet up like that at the end of the day. So it's just done my head in, to be honest. It's just massively done my head in. And it does change the tie. I mean, yes, there have been this whole argument. Some people have been saying if your forward gets sent off, you shouldn't concede 5 goals. But to put it simply, that's not the same game if Sadio Mane doesn't get sent off. I mean, even Pep Guardiola said, first of all, Pep Guardiola, manager of Manchester City, defended Sadio Mane and totally understood why Mane did what he did, which is another reason why I think, you know, Mane is in no way in the wrong there and shouldn't be sent off. But it's a totally equal game, as Pep Guardiola said, at 11 v 11. You know, Liverpool, obviously they were 1-0 down, and there were a lot of flaws with the way they were playing. They were being exposed at the back by Man City. It did look like City could still score more than the one goal they had at that point. But Liverpool still looked threatening and still looked like they were more than capable of getting something out of that game. And once you take out Sadio Mane, Liverpool's best player effectively, and someone who's so important to the way that they would have played against Manchester City if they'd kept it at 11 v 11, you just killed the game off effectively. And the issue for me is that Jurgen Klopp doesn't know any other way to play football really other than attacking football, the same as Pep Guardiola really. So when he loses Sadio Mane, he can't just say, right, okay, we'll sit back, we'll stay with what we've got and we'll try to get a goal on the break. You know, that's just not how this Liverpool side operate. We've seen them sit back and absorb pressure for periods of a game, but we've never seen them do it as their overall setup, especially when that certainly isn't what they were looking to do going into the match. They won't have practiced and trained ready to try and go in with that style. They will have practiced to go with what they would have done had Sadio Mane not got sent off in the first place. So obviously, as soon as Mane gets sent off, the only option is to start piling even more players forward to make up for it, and that obviously leaves Liverpool exposed at the back. It obviously means that a City team that, by the way, were incredible today. I mean, Liverpool were incredibly poor, but Man City were at the very, very top of their game, and you simply can't. You can't have a go at the Liverpool squad for that, at least. There are a lot of things to have a go at us about today, but to be honest, it wouldn't have been 5-0 unless Man City put in such an incredible performance. And playing against a Man City team like that, the most expensively assembled team in world football, managed by Pep Guardiola, a team that was playing so well, trying to come up against that with 10 men is just, you're going to have a bad time no matter what. Liverpool had a horrible time, but it certainly wasn't easy given the circumstances. And I think at the end of the day, our heads simply dropped because, like I said, we tried to pull men forward. We tried to get something back out the game. And once that didn't work, we simply just sort of lost the will to play football, to be honest. I mean, you look at a goal like the fourth goal, the first one Leroy Sané scored. I think if Liverpool were winning the game 1-0, that goal wouldn't have gone in. It's as simple as that. You see the attitude of the defenders. They look knackered. They look almost disinterested. And it's something that it's understandable, and it explains why we played that way. It's certainly not forgivable, and I'm certainly not happy about it. You know, I'm very annoyed that the team have taken that attitude, but it's something you can understand, and I think we've all kind of been in that situation for any of us who have played football, where things aren't going your way and your head just drops and you lose the will to play football properly. And Man City fully exploited that because, like I said, they were fantastic today. So really the only positive you can take from this match is that at the end of the day, as catastrophic as it was, as many goals as we conceded, as disappointing as all of it was, you know, it's only one game at the end of the day. And I think if Liverpool go out and win their next two games, if they beat Sevilla in midweek and beat Burnley next weekend, then I think we can all start to put this result behind us, because everyone has bad days at the office. You know, there's very few teams, you know, who go the whole season without losing a game. That's why Arsenal's Invincibles season was considered so impressive, because it is just something that doesn't regularly happen in football. So you will lose games by and large during a season. Obviously, you don't tend to lose them 5-0. Big contenders for the Premier League title don't lose 5-0. I mean, please, someone do tell me if a Premier League title winning team has ever had a loss like that during the season when they've actually won the league, because I'd love to know. It would certainly perk me up if they have. But I think it's all about just putting this result behind us now, treating it as a blip, treat it as what it is, a result where things simply didn't go our way today. Our performance wasn't good enough. Man City were very good. The decisions didn't go our way in that game. It is disappointing, but we need to move on. And if Liverpool do pick themselves up off the floor and get back to winning ways after that game, then it'll only be a good sign in terms of the strength of their character. Obviously, the Sadio Mane suspension thing is going to cause us problems in the meantime, because obviously, while, like I said, I don't think it was a red card, I certainly don't think if we appealed it, we'd actually get it rescinded. I think it's the kind of thing that the FA would just stick with. I mean, Jurgen Klopp himself said that they weren't really interested in bothering to appeal it. As he said, that would be a waste of time, like the whole game today. And I think that's kind of what you have to pass it off as. It was a waste of time. You just kind of got to brush it off, not get too upset about it, and just hope that we can improve on it. Because if we do go on a bad run now, then that's when I'll start to worry, and lots of fans will start to worry, and that's when we can say that what's going on is actually a damning indictment of the state of the team at the moment. You simply can't go off of one performance, as bad as it was, and say this is the worst team in the world, you're terrible, this player's terrible, everyone's awful, because it's one game. It's one 90-minute period, and as bad as they were, you still can't judge based on just that, if you ask me. But it is disappointing about the Sadio Mane thing. Obviously, we're only really missing him for 2 games, because he certainly wouldn't have played in the Leicester game in the League Cup, and we still got him for the Champions League as well, which is good. So we'll probably see a little bit of rotation there. Hopefully, something like Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain on the wing might be nice to see whether he can do a job, but a very disappointing day all round. So here's hoping that we can pick ourselves up off the floor as fans and the players as well and get back to winning ways against Sevilla. So that is all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, why not give it a like? If you're new around here as well, hit subscribe. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter as well. And I'll be back tomorrow for all the pre-match build-up content for the game against Sevilla in the Champions League. Bye for now.